Yo, 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 it's your man C. Dougie coming to you a week right before training camp. Let me go ahead and turn the camera on. Yes, we are back with a training camp special. We have a full panel of guests tonight, having the privilege of bringing you guys the offensive side of the ball. Got a cliffhanger. This is only part one, man. You got to stay tuned for part two details. But let me go ahead and bring up my co-host over here at What's Up, Doug. My guy, Uncle Quan, man. What's going on, Quan, man? Tell the people how you feeling tonight, man. We're going to get into it. We're going to have a great live setup for the people, man. How you feeling?
Man, what's up, everybody? What be going on, man? It's your boy Q, a.k.a. Uncle Quan. Doug, man, it's always a privilege, man. Just an honor just being up here with you, man. We got a hell of a show tonight, man. We got a lot of special guests coming. I'm not gonna spill the beans just yet, man, but looking forward to this show, man. I appreciate you having me up, Doug.
Oh, like I said, always, man. So our first panel guest that we're going to bring up, he is new to over What's Up, Doug. I definitely have been chopping up with this young man on his channel. Let me go ahead and bring up Clay. Rap man, Clay, how you feeling today, man? Tell the people what's up. Where can they find you at, man?
What's going on, Panther Nation? Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Robstar Report. You can look me up on Twitter, TikTok, Robstar92_. You can follow me on there. But that's where you can find me.
Yes, sir, man. I definitely appreciate you pulling up on us tonight as well.
Absolutely.
My next guest is another newcomer over here at What's Up, Doug. I had the privilege of meeting her last year at training camp. Definitely been trying to get her on the channel. Can't wait to see her again whenever I do come back home to Carolina for training camp. Let me bring up Vashti from Carolina Blitz. Vashti, tell the people how you feeling tonight, Queen. Definitely tell them where they can find you at. I know they hear your voice, but they may not know who you are.
Yeah, Vashti, founder and editor-in-chief of Carolina Blitz, and we're everywhere. Keep blitzing on Twitter, Carolina Blitz on Instagram, carolinablitz.com. So yeah, I'm getting ready for training camp next week.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, we got some more guests. Like I said, this is not it, man. This is a power-packed panel tonight, man. We're going to tell you guys how the panel is going to go, what we're going to talk about, and etc. But I have two other gentlemen that have given me the pleasure of joining my platform. Let me go ahead and bring on one of the gentlemen, Ricky Raines from the Boat Body Show. Ricky, go ahead to the people. How you feeling tonight, man? Definitely appreciate you pulling back up, spitting that knowledge with us over here tonight as well.
Yeah, man, I'm feeling good. Appreciate you having me on. I'm gracious to be on with the rest of the guests that you have tonight. I don't know what strings you're pulling, man, but you made some magic happen. So I'm looking forward to talking about the Carolina Panthers offense.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, another guest that has definitely been behind the scenes. We definitely have talked, man. We did a couple of videos with this other Panther content creator. Let me go ahead and bring up Dunk from Unnecessary Bluntness. Dunk, go ahead and tell the people what up, though.
What up, though? It's good, people. It's good to be seen in this thing with some heavy hitters. It's a privilege to be seen, you know what I'm saying, in this 2024 July 15th. So we almost here. It's almost training camp time, man. Check me out at Dunk on the Man. You see the @ there. Obviously, UB Sports Talk on YouTube, man. We do a variety of Panthers content. So if you want to stay on top of those type of things, holla at your boy.
Yes, sir.
Out.
All right. So yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
So this special is brought to you not only by What's Up Dub, but we have another Panther content creator or team that we joined up with behind the scenes, talked about, hey, we want to bring something to the platform where we can talk about training camp. I'm gonna bring up the co-host of this 2-night special, and CJ and Tony from Two Fans in the Stands. Go ahead and tell the people what's up. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Mike muted, cuz. My bad. I'm sorry. Okay. What's going on, everybody? It's your favorite armchair GM, CJ. All right. And this is my cousin Tony over here, your favorite couch scout extraordinaire. All right. You can find us at Two Fans in the Stands. Yes. You can find us at Two Fans in the Stands and Two Fans ITS on Twix. That's what we call Twitter. A mixture of Twitter and X. We call it Twix. You can find us at Two Fans ITS.
Yes, got your cousins.
Yeah, hey, my big two
most
cousins.
Definitely.
Look, that's my phone, my two big cousins. But man, like I said, before we get into it, I appreciate every single person on this panel. The planning that we had to do to get these people together, these people responded. We're going to bring you guys great content tonight. But before we jump into it, this episode and going forward, we are sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek, if you use the code What's Up Doug, you were able to receive $20 off your first ticket purchase with SeatGeek. If you have any questions with getting tickets, if you need some help getting with tickets, shoot me a message in the chat. Shoot me a message underneath the video. I'll definitely set you up. I can send you a video where for the Washington Commanders game, I got 2 tickets, 5 rows from the end zone for $214. Originally it was $247. Use the code. Definitely got a profit and got a discount from it. So if you want to get tickets, definitely get at me. Again, use the code What's Up Doug, and you will get $20 off your first ticket price. So let's go ahead and get into it. I know everybody is looking forward to see what Dave Canales first. We did have a super chat. Shout out to Donna B for our first super chat of the night. She said driving. All listening. I appreciate that, Donna B. Also, for the chat tonight, if you have a question in mind that you want the panelists to answer or you'd like for us to answer, with it being a full house, please make sure that you put it in a super chat. This is the only time we're ever asked for super chats or super stickers. So if you have a question in mind that you want us to answer from the panelists, send it in a super chat or send in a super sticker for us tonight. So as you see, we're on the offensive side of tonight. The first question now I'm going to ask the panelists, and anybody can jump into it first. Can the Dave Canales effect turn things around? With the short temper that we know David Temper has, with the coaches that we've had a round-robin table with, do we think Dave Canales is the right coach? Is the energy correct? Is his coaching philosophy going to be the right coaching philosophy for us to get back to winning football, and do the players believe in his mindset? I'm gonna hand it off.
I think that's a loaded question.
Okay.
It's kind of early to even say that. And I've been asked this a lot. I'm not getting duped again. I got duped last year, okay? And I had all of these lofty goals and lofty aspirations for the team heading into last year. They put together this packed powerhouse coaching squad, and everybody had belief again. And then the season started and everything went downhill. So I'm erring on the side of caution when it comes to that. Are the vibes good? Yes. I mean, I've been to OTAs, but the vibes are always good to during OTAs. And matter of fact, the vibes are always good the first couple of days of training camp. The true test for me, for this team, is not the first preseason game. It'll be that joint practice with the Jets. And that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you get to see these guys up against their equals, not their teammates. And then we'll maybe get a glimpse and see how this might play out. Because even last year, they were beaten in that joint practice. And the year before in Indy, they were beaten in that joint practice. So that's what I'll be looking to. prior to training camp, even that first week, I'm not. I'm not. You know, I'd love for them to do well, but it's too early for me to say that this is going to be what it is this season.
Facts. Anybody else want to jump in on it?
Nah, I agree. I mean, I'm just gonna start believing like what I see. Is that the thing? Like, I'm cool with making judgments off of training camp and preseason, like, because just being out there sweating and seeing them go through certain things, you can kind of see the patterns and stuff. Like looking back, the good thing about creating content, you can always go back and see what you were saying back then when you saw what you saw, and like look at it now. It's like, dang, when I was saying back then, it was actually led a lot. Like best I said, the joint practices. What was the issue? They couldn't stop anybody on the interior. Quentin Williams had like a bunch of sacks. They couldn't protect on the inside. Icky had some struggles as well. But what you could see is on certain days, the defense had the offense's number. It was a little bit more physical for them. And like I said, it kind of was a telltale. And you saw those certain patterns. There were some irregularities in terms of just the play calling. You would see Thomas Brown on the speaker, but Frank Wright wasn't really doing any play calling, but he was going to call plays at the beginning. So there were some things that stuck out that were head scratchers that we kind of just brush off because, like you said, the vibes are always good at that point. You don't want to just kind of write everything off just because it's just preseason and things are vanilla. But sometimes you kind of just got to believe what you see, man. So that's what I'm going to kind of do. And like she said, it's kind of too early to tell. So we'll find out soon and very soon. But hopefully there's actually a full body of work to be judged off of. All in all with Dave Canales, but I think it's going to take a little bit more time just because of the inexperience he has and just finding out who we are. And I think he's kind of said that they just want to do the football things right, and then we'll figure out what they are. And there was a lack of talent. They've done a good job adding some talent, but I still think there's a way to go just to discover what they have. And all these moves sound good on paper, but until you start going against somebody, you don't really know how they work out.
That's a fact, though. All right.
Yeah, and I do think that one of the cool things, if I can kind of piggyback off that and the joint practice idea, it's cool that we play against the Jets again, that we'll have our joint practice against the Jets once again, because you'll get to see that kind of like compare and contrast of these two teams that neither of them lived up, right, to the expectations last season. Different reasons. Aaron Rodgers' injury was obviously a focal point there. Here it was the overall injury of our franchise, basically, that kind of like caused us the biggest problem. But so going up and seeing it, yeah, I agree that that's a great judgment. As far as the question of can Dave Canales lead the team? Yeah, like his personality leads you to believe that he can be a charismatic leader of men. So from that standpoint, that's the only thing you can really judge right now, right? We haven't played any football. Like everyone's working out in shorts and t-shirts. They look like they're having a good time doing it. I love to hear the reports about the energy and the belief and the confidence in the team being better than where it was, especially at the conclusion of last year, but maybe even this point. So yeah, I'm optimistic about it, but I think that Dunk and Vashti made great points about tempering expectations, and I have to remind myself that on a daily basis because I wake up and I'm ready to 10 wins, division winner, and let's get this parade planned out on Mint Street. But sometimes you got to take a step back.
Yeah. You got something, Clay?
Yeah, I mean, to allude to that, I mean, I would say there's like two things that need to happen here. First off is the culture shift, right? I mean, we're basically in full rebuild mode. Canales is set to basically not overhaul just the playbook, but it's about the entire team, the culture. I mean, his approach with this player-centric approach, right? Focus on building a positive and winning mentality is crucial for this team, right? Bringing back that confidence and consistency, but we have to keep it real. There's plenty of optimism and expectations should be, I would say, tempered. That's the way I like to put it, because we've had an owner who likes to meddle within the football operations, and so far we've seen him take a back seat. But again, we're in rebuild mode. The progress takes time. If Canales can instill this offensive philosophy and boost his players' performance, then even a modest improvement, I think, would be a win in our book.
Yes, sir. All right. So speaking of coaches, let's go ahead and go into those offensive coaches on that side. As we know, head coach Dave Canales, you got Brad Izzett, offensive coordinator, Joe Gilbert, offensive line coach, running backs coach, Bernie Parolini, tight ends coach Matt McPherson, and wide receivers coach Rob Moore. With these particular coaches, are they more aligned? Are they on the same wavelength as last year? As some people were saying, hey, these particular coaches that we had last year, they were the superhero coaching staff, like, the Avengers. People are saying we had the best coaches, this and that. How are we feeling with the coaches? And I know Vashti said it's very early as well, but how do we feel? Do we trust this coaching staff more, or is it still they have to prove it to us based off of what happened last year?
I kind of feel passionate about this one. And I hate this to be starting first, but the thing where one of the first places I think that Frank Reich went wrong is Frank Reich didn't go and put together a coaching staff of his guys. He went together and put together a coaching staff that consisted of the hot names, right? Thomas Brown was a hot name. Then you bring in he's still there.
Evero.
Not Evero, on the offensive side. I'm having a brain fart. But anyways, he brought together a bunch of guys who are hot
Jim
names.
Caldwell.
Jim Caldwell. Thank you. Jim Caldwell, you have Thomas Brown, you have guys who are actually being mentioned for head coaching and also offensive coordinator jobs. And then, so you have people who it wasn't a cohesive group. On the flip side, when Dave Canales came, he brought all his homeboys. And with that comes a level of loyalty and being on the same page. So instead of us hearing about, there's friction in the room with how Bryce should be managed or how the offense should be run, they're all on the same page. And I think that cohesiveness will benefit the Panthers offense off rip. But I think that he did a good job of just bringing people that he's familiar with, who he knows has the same mindset and who are going to be loyal to him as he goes through this process of being a first-time head coach. And also guys who are young and just as hungry as he is, for the most part.
I know somebody else got some. I know Vashon just didn't take the whole.
Nah, I agree too. I was just trying to let somebody else jump in too, so we can keep going in the same order. So it don't get redundant. I agree. Hiring your homeboys is cool. Sometimes it backfires, like with Matt Rule, where you just hire your homeboys and then you got some people jumping ship, like what's his name, Marcus Satterfield. He left for South Carolina. You got a couple guys leaving after the first year, just using it as a springboard to go somewhere. But the difference is we actually seen this group be together and do something else at a prior stop. Matt Rule was just kind of bringing guys off the bench or lifting as he climbed, per se, for lack of better words, and just kind of a bunch of inexperience. But these guys have experience together. They work together. They've had a somewhat productive unit. And we've seen them have a level of success as an offensive unit. Now, ascending, everybody kind of moving up a notch, per se, in terms of Brad Izzik and Dave Canales and just them having a little bit more responsibility. That's yet to be seen, but you have to love the alignment. And I just think it's funny. And I've said it before, like, this is not anything crazy. It's just like basic stuff. But I feel like we've been so far away from normal football stuff that it's just a breath of fresh air to have alignment on this coaching staff. So it's refreshing to hear. But it's just a step. But I mean, we'll see. Hopefully it works out.
Yeah, I mean, Dunk's right. I mean, and the coaching staff last year looked like they were flipping through a Football for Dummies playbook. And so now it's like, again, it's just like what Dunk alluded to. It's like a breath of fresh air. I mean, you had to shake things up. You keep a Jair Evero, who's our defensive figure, as the coordinator, and you bring in these fresh offensive minds, and then you got Dave Canales at the helm. Solid season mix of vets, rising stars on this staff. But again, I think it's the same thing, kind of what we were alluded to the last question. We have to see it.
Yeah, I think that that whole offensive line last year, man, I think that was not the offensive line, but the whole offensive coaching staff last year was like one of those things like you just throw it up in the air and see what sticks, see what works. I think they were trying to step outside the box and do something that wasn't commonly known to be done in NFL. It's high with outside the friend zone. I think Frank Wright went into it with the mindset of you know, I'm not gonna hire a bunch of my homies, so it's not gonna be a bunch of nepotism, if you will. We're going to bring in fresh minds, people that may have not worked together before, and see if we could put all these ingredients into this gumbo and make it good. But then, it came out that it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? And not only did it not work, it exploded from day one. So, you saw that you never saw that continuity that you want to see come down from top to bottom. There was always some kind of rift, always some kind of miscommunication, mishandling the Bryce, like Vashti mentioned. Like, it was so many factors to where that offensive staff, even or just the staff in general, really couldn't come together, and it translated, and you saw it on the field amongst the players. The good thing was that Ejero brought in his guys, that unit gel, and time they got a second season to continue gelling and having everybody in place so that defense can continue to grow and everybody is on one accord. So hopefully, with the hire of Dave Canales and his offensive staff, even though they're behind the eight ball, that they can eventually be where Evero has the defense at.
Well, I think you make a really good point with that, though. The whole Evero having a little bit of continuity here with his guys, because you're not teaching two brand new sides of the game, right? Like, so when you talk about the continuity and the alignment that Dave Canales has with the staff that he's brought in, I mean, you got guys like Pat McPherson, the tight ends coach, was with Seattle for 14 seasons, about the same amount of length as Dave Canales. Nate Carroll, Pete Carroll's son, I know that he wasn't on that slide, but, he's the pass game coordinator. And has worked directly, very closely with Dave Canales and Brad Idzik. And I think that them knowing each other so well is going to help kind of not expedite the process of installing the offense and all of the verbiage and communication aspect of it. But that familiarity, they're going to know how they want to get that across to the players. Where last year, it just seemed like there was a lot of people looking for the attaboys of, hey, I think that Thomas got the most out of him with what he did on that adjustment, or I think that Frank Reich actually got the ball rolling with what he, installed in and implemented into the offense this week. God forbid they practice the pistol for 14 days. You know what I mean? I mean, there's all kinds of things that we saw last year that was just incompetent, and the alignment and togetherness of this coaching staff, I think, has to just make you feel better about the fact they're going to be teaching the same way and they have the same end goals and operatives.
All right,
I just hope that this
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just hope that this alignment and togetherness that Ricky talked about will hopefully help them weather the storm, because I do think it's going to be a storm before things, get better. I don't think it's going to be better off the rip. So I hope that, their experience that they have together can help them get through whatever they have to at the start of the season. And hopefully we'll turn this thing around somewhere down the road.
Well, see, that goes into the question. We got our first super chat question. Again, if you have a question for the panel, we're not doing it like normal because we're trying to get through our slides and preserve everybody's time. So if you do have a super chat or a question that you would like to ask, put in a super chat and we'll definitely have the panel answer it. So the question, we appreciate Red Swarm. He said, I have a question for the panel. What does a successful season after last season look like to you? And
hey, can I answer this one?
Yeah, I was gonna have one person. Go ahead.
Bet. Okay, bet. I appreciate it. Man, look, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm gonna keep it a whole 100. We are so trash. A successful season for us. And I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts. I've been listening to just reading everybody's temperature. But a successful season is looking more like 5 to 8 wins. That's what's looking like a successful season for us. Obviously, it's because we're coming off a 2-15 season, so I understand it's not going to be like we're not going to the playoffs. Of course, that's not to be expected. But the improvement, is expected to be around like 5 to 8 games. So it's still mediocre, of course, but we gotta crawl before we can, start running and all that good stuff. But yeah, man, a successful season, yeah, somewhere between 5 to 8 wins, I guess.
And I already know where that's gonna come from. And let me go ahead and get into it, because I know this is gonna be the longest discussion with this particular group. Quarterbacks.
But
go ahead, Tony.
I just wanted to ask Vashti one question, related back to what we were just talking about. Last year, I know there was a lot of conversations being had about Frank Wright installing his triangle read offense, and then Thomas Brown coming from LA with that wide zone running type offense. What was the conversation like behind the scenes, and how did people in the building feel about two offenses coming together, and which one was going to, which one were we going to lean on more heavily than the others? Because that's something that I never really seen before, where you bring two separate offenses. So you got the triangle read of the passing attack that Frank Wright had in Indianapolis and Philadelphia. Then you bring the running style from the wide zone that Thomas Brown learned under Sean McVay in LA. What was the conversation like about those two things meshing?
Well, I don't know what the conversation was behind the scenes, but the understanding heading into the beginning of the season was that Frank Wright was going to call the plays, and Thomas Brown was it was going to be a more collaborative effort. But what we've learned since then, it wasn't as collaborative as wasn't as successfully collaborative as what they would have liked. And there was a clash about offensive philosophy and how things should have played out. So, and then we saw the coaching change mid-season. But the good thing is we're kind of past all of that, and I don't anticipate there will be any type of philosophy issues, and even identity issues with this, which I think is even more important with this staff.
Right.
Yep. All right, so let's see. Let's go ahead and go into quarterbacks. I know a lot of people are going to ask questions about quarterback. A lot of questions, a lot of success. The reason why people say, the success was a failure, or however Panther Nation feel, the main problem has been Bryce Young. As we see, he only threw 11 touchdowns last year. He is the projected starter. We bring back Andy Dalton. You have Jack Plummer, undrafted quarterback out of Louisville, that joins this roster. But the question that I have right now for the panel is, can Bryce Young continue the all-season improvements with his footwork and be able to showcase his talents with the new weapons on offense? One of the biggest problems that Bryce Young had that we saw was his footwork was not great. He would definitely be scared that he didn't plant his feet properly. But one thing that Canales said that he wanted to work on was Bryce Young's footwork. So how do we feel going into training camp? We've all seen highlights. We've all covered OTAs. We've all covered mandatory minicamp. What do we need to see going into next week? Continuous progress with the footwork, or what else do we need to see before we go into that first preseason game with the New England Patriots?
We need to see him become a vocal leader. That's what I want to see. Just plain and simply put.
What does that look like, though? I mean,
Thank
what
you.
does being a vocal leader look like? That's to you.
So let me elaborate on that. I was so with being a vocal leader, somebody that's in and out of the huddle, somebody, cheering his guys on, simple stuff like, encouraging your guys. I'm not saying Bryce struggles with that. We've seen that, flashes of that last year. We've seen him huddle up the sideline, cheer everybody on and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna lie, hearing that come from our head coach, that is a concern for me, because I do want our quarterback to be a vocal leader. And when he says he's not taking on that role, that is a bit of a concern for me, just personally. But I mean, of course, with the play on the field, all that stuff can go out the window, of course. But I would like to see him be a vocal leader. Like I just want to see that article kind of calm me down in a sense, if that makes sense.
I want him to just be true to himself. I don't want him to be rah-rah and to be fake. Then you get the Russell Wilson situation where people are crazy on the sideline. If you're putting out these Bible verses and motivational quotes every morning in people's locker and stuff.
Yeah,
And
you don't need him
we're
to be
not
10
going
feet
for that.
up.
It gets old, especially if we struggling as a team. So, like, I want him to be himself. You know, if he's not comfortable being the rah-rah, hoorah-rah guy, that's fine. I mean, I'm sure he'll open up to it because he's not, I mean, he's a laid-back, chill guy, but we've seen him. We've heard him yelling, cussing in the locker room during certain games because stuff went wrong and stuff went left. It may not be that he's put it out there on Front Street for everybody to see, but we've heard those type of things, and it may just be a matter of fact of him just being comfortable with who he is as a person to the media and stuff like that. He's very, like I say, he's very chill, laid back guy. Obviously, only child. His parents are very involved in his life. He seems like he's still 22 years old, so he's very, very young. Things change, and you have to kind of get comfortable with who you are as a person before you just kind of go out there and put on this fake persona, because it's hard putting on a persona. You become a character of yourself, you know, that you're trying to maintain. But if you just yourself all the time, people can feel that and people can read that. And I know we've heard the quotes and stuff, and Clowney was talking about that as well. But he also mentioned about Deshaun Watson not being that vocal of a leader as well. But he was just a guy that came out and was a gamer and the stuff like that. And we see, we did see prime Deshaun Watson, him out on the field having fun and stuff like that, and that being infectious and carrying into momentum and success on the field. So I just want him to be who he is. I don't want him to be anybody that he ain't. And then it ended up being some facade, and then he really loses the locker room because he may not be having a success, but he's also putting on this fake mask or whatever, whom that he thinks the media or the fans want him to be, or who he should be.
Facts.
Well, and there's like two trains of thought with it too, though, right? And one is it could simply be that we haven't won many games. So a lot of times when you see Bryce get a little bit more animated, it was back at Alabama when they were winning and they were playing well. And when he is not a front runner, that's not necessarily the attitude of it. But when you have a lead, or when you are competing and you're close and things are going well and there's things to believe in from a tangible way, it's a whole lot easier to kind of speak on those types of things. But also, who's to say that Bryce wasn't relatively not vocal, right? Like yelling and all that stuff. But he was involved, man. Like we saw him talking to his teammates. We saw him in the huddle. Every teammate that was interviewed had mentioned that he had good command of the huddle, right? And that they respected him, and they knew that if they could get it down into the crunch time of a game and it's a close game, they expected Bryce to come out there and perform. Like that still speaks to leadership to me a little bit. But also when you start a new job, I think of it as like, do you come in there and immediately start trying to just dominate and assert everything at the very beginning? Or do you kind of read the room and the temperature and the dynamics of what is making all that work, and then earn your way into having a more vocal input into that process? And then once you've done that, right, once you've started to put some good projects out there for everybody to look at, and you've gotten a couple of, exclamation points on an email, you start feeling a whole lot better about telling somebody, hey, look, I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice here. Maybe you want to do it this way, but you don't want to step on toes right when you walk into a new gig. So I just think that from my standpoint on it, I've seen Bryce trying to earn that respect. And once he feels like he has accomplished what he needs to on an individual personal level, I fully anticipate him being more vocal.
Yeah.
All right. Can I
I
throw this out?
also think this would.
Well, hold on. I'm gonna throw this out, but Clay was talking real quick. CJ, then after Clay, I'm gonna shoot it to you. The question that I have after Clay goes, have we seen improvement? I know Quan asked about he made a statement of a vocal leader, but have we seen improvement from the first day that he stepped into the organization until now? Clay, go ahead, and then we're going to pass it to CJ, and if somebody wants to answer that, they can go after CJ. Go ahead, Clay.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, let's talk about I just want y'all to imagine this right here. Imagine being handed the keys to a car that's missing a wheel, and the steering is shot, and a raccoon's living in the back seat. That's what Bryce stepped into last year. So, but for this year, I mean, the goal for him this year, for me, is just to see him be more precise and stay poised under pressure. I want to see him develop a little bit more connection with the teammates. I want to see quick reads and the fast ball release. I think those are the biggest things for me. I mean, managing expectations, success, I don't think is expected to be right out the gate. But noticeable improvement is the goal.
All right, go ahead, CJ.
No, I was just going to say, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is probably one of the first seasons that Bryce has ever had that went quite this way. And behind the scenes, we don't know. He may have had to do like a hard reset, just to be able to deal with what was going on. So, hopefully that will translate into this year and, with Canales and his staff coming over, and hopefully that'll help him out.
I think that Panthers fans are still spoiled by Cam Newton, right? Because he was such
Facts.
a boisterous
Facts.
person, such a boisterous leader, such an outgoing, gregarious person. He's the person that you see emotion from. He emotes, and that's just who he is. And he was true to himself, and everybody loved that, and rightfully so, right? You have to allow people to be who they are. And Bryce is not that person. However, I have seen a change in him this offseason, at least in the press room. So when he comes in, we have banter. He's like, "Oh, how y'all doing?" Or, like he seems more confident, not just in who I think he's naturally a confident guy, but just his place, and I think that Ricky made a good point. Like when you're new to something, you kind of gotta make sure you understand the ropes first. And as a 22-year-old being thrust into this role as number one overall pick, and the expectations that were put on him right off of the bat, right? Oh, NFC South championship, that was what everybody was saying. Oh, plug in the quarterback and we're good. We don't need to fix anything. Now, this is stuff that was being said, and I think that it wasn't. We all know now that it wasn't an ideal situation. But I think as Bryce matures, as he becomes more comfortable with not just being the leader of this team, but as he grows as a man, I think that we'll start seeing more of his personality. And I think that his leadership will reflect in that locker room. And I think that he showed what we see on the outside is not what we see they see in the locker room. Well, and we do see glimpses at practice. He's very encouraging and stuff. But as far as being a leader, I do think Bryce is a leader in his own way. And I also think success on the football field, like CJ Stroud wouldn't be CJ Stroudy if they were asked. You know what I mean? Like he would not be the same person. So winning also is a factor, and success is a factor. And I think that as the Panthers hopefully become a more successful team, you'll start seeing those glimpses from him.
Facts.
Everybody loved Cam, right? But then, like you said, winning and success is a huge factor. What happened when Cam was so outgoing and still using all his personality, but the Panthers sucked? People were telling him to shut up, and they were telling him to stick to
There were
football.
fans too who were saying
Correct.
that too.
Yep. So it's like everything can be rapid pace healed with some winning. So the winning is the first thing. You bring the winning and then work out through all the other stuff. But like I mean, it was a great point. Cam was such a dynamic force that it's really hard to make any kind of comparison to another quarterback in Carolina when you had the biggest star of them all here.
Facts. And then with that, I know I'm gonna pass it to Dunk. I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm gonna pass this to Dunk. We're gonna go with running backs. Chuba Hubbard is supposed to be the projected starter right now, but Miles Sanders was supposed to be this lead back, basically being the same back that he was in Philadelphia, and it didn't translate underneath Frank Wright. Then you bring in Raheem Blackshear, you bring him back, then you sign Rashid Penny, then you draft a Jonathan Brooks, you bring back Mike Boone from the practice squad, and then you bring in another undrafted free agent in Jaden Sherdon. Do you think this unit as a whole can combine for 2,000 yards? I do know that Chuba was less than 100 to get 1,000 last year, but with the run first mindset, Dave Canales is very honest. Hey, we're running the ball. We're going to run the heck out of the ball, da-da-da-da-da. Do you think with the type of offense that we're going to run that this particular room can eclipse 2,000 going in to year one underneath Dave Canales?
I mean, based off what they're saying, yeah. But let's just back up a little bit. 2,000 yards. It sounds like a very nice vanity number, but if you back into that, which is divided by 17 games, that's about 117 yards per game rushing. If you look at team rankings for last year in 2023, that would have been good enough to be a top 12, top 11 unit. The Rams averaged 117.4, so you're close to teetering to a top 10 rushing unit, which was pretty low compared to prior years just because the running game in the NFL is kind of in a weird spot right now. But anyway, if you commit to the run, you can be a successful running team if they're going to commit as much as they say they are. They have the right idea. They brought in the personnel, the size, the beef up front to be able to do that, to push guys around. They got guys that enjoyed that type of football, pushing guys around, and Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt, and add that with a little bit of Ike Ekwonu on the side, and you have some guys that like to push guys around and be mean and be physical. And if you think that is a way to build your offense per se, yeah, I think getting 2,000 yards is very, very feasible. Is it the right way to go? Probably, because we all expect our defense to take a little bit of a step back just because of the loss of talent in terms of a playmaker like Frankie Louvu or a top 10 pass rusher like Brian Burns. Being removed from these
now top what, Dunk?
Top 10 according to the execs and scouts and coaches on ESPN, but that's how they debate it. But regardless, he's a difference maker. He's the guy that people have to account for, and so we expect this defense to take somewhat of a step back. I know they put up a valiant effort last year. They weren't some juggernaut, but they put up a valiant effort. But a running game is going to protect them as well. So it just breeds a element of complementary football that I think helps the offense, including Bryce, including the offensive line, including some of the struggles that Ike Ekwonu might have had, and also protects a unit that may be a little bit thin in the teeth in terms of just personnel and talent, or top end talent and playmakers. And so when you play that type of brand, it helps both sides. So I think getting to, like I said, that 117 yards per game mark, I think it's very feasible. And so with the stable of backs we have, I think that's something that can be done and should be done. But like I said, talking about doing stuff on paper, they have to go out there and execute.
I'm going to throw this in before somebody jumps on it next if they want to. When Cam Newton was here, well, I'm going to use Cam Newton. We've had two running backs or two horses in the saddle or in the stall for numerous of years. And when we're a run-first team, we are always have been productive on the offensive side of the ball. And I think everybody's looking like, oh, Dave Canales is this quarterback whisperer. We're going to keep the ball in Bryce's hands. That does not have to be the case. Again, don't just look at all the running backs that we have in that room right now. They're not going to just use one running back, run them down until it's wear and tear on them. No, what he's going to do is you have a Jonathan Brooks, who I'm really hoping is healthy. I'm really hoping he's healthy because I know everybody on here, we've all done mock drafts. We were doing draft content. Nobody thought we were actually going to get a running back that high. But when you look at what we're going forward with, I do like the mindset of getting back to what keep pounding, what the Carolina Panthers philosophy was being a physical defense and a run-first team. And I love that mindset because, again, that's our roots. That's what I grew up watching Carolina Panthers, that we had a plethora of running backs, and you did have a quarterback here and there. But it's important to also transition into what the NFL is going to, because if you're running the ball, you also have to have a passing game here as well. So that's the reason why I asked 2,000 yards, because is it doable? Yes. But like Dunk said, on paper, that's a huge number.
No, just to go on what you're saying real quick, I ain't going to hug. I'm just going to say, like, we've only had two 4,000-yard passes in franchise history. That's ridiculous. We have to come into the modern era of football eventually. But where we are right now, we're going to have to run the ball, unfortunately. But I think any kind of respectable offense should be able to hit 4,000 yards just when you have a functional team. But I think we're going to be a run-first team, though, still. But
and Dave Canales has said that. Like, he's come out and said this is going to be a run-first team. And that was one of the people criticized him in Tampa Bay for committing to the run too much. And that was like they were like, oh, it's not running. The run game is not working. And he was still committed to the running game, and that's what I think. I think that Frank Wright said he was gonna commit to the running game and didn't commit. I think Dave Canales will actually commit to the running game, as you see, and we'll talk about O-line. They spent a lot of money on that offensive line this offseason. They have a very thick running back room, a lot of guys. And I think that a strong run game, and I think he understands that hope helps open up your pass game. So Canales is very clear that this will be a run first team. And I think that as they bring Bryce along, that's what they'll commit to. And you know, Dunk says 4,000. What did you say? 2,000?
2,000.
2,000? I was gonna say 4,000. 2,000? Hey, maybe.
Sorry, I was on mute. Again, let's go ahead and transition into our wide receivers. But before we do that, if you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit the like button for us. Again, we have great minds on the panel. I appreciate Clay, Dunk, Ricky, Vashti, and the co-hosts of this live. Two fans in the stand, CJ and Tony, join us tonight, and my co-host, Uncle Quan. Again, if you have a question for us, put in a super chat. And like I said, the like button is free, so just hit the like button for us. Get the likes up for us. So let's go into the wide receivers. Projected starters are Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, and Xavier Legette. Depth, we had Terrence Marshall, Jonathan Mingo, Amir Smith-Marset, David Moore, Mike Stratton, Cam Sims, Jalen Coker, and Sam Pitney. Can this year's wide receiver group create separation for Bryce this season? One thing that everybody was saying was Bryce didn't have separation. Wide receivers weren't getting separation. Reason why Bryce was holding the ball was because he didn't have anybody to throw to. With the revamped wide receiver room, adding a rookie, going to do a trade for a player, bringing in undrafted free agents. How are we feeling about the room going into year 2 with Bryce Young? I'm going to give it off. Go ahead, Clay. How you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think so. You got Deontay Johnson, who is a slick route runner. You got Xavier Legette, size and speed. You got emerging talents with Jadavion Sanders, who's a guy who's going to be the future of this tight end room. I think that this unit can definitely be primed to shake off defenders and create plenty of separation. I mean, last year, Jonathan Mingo and DJ Chark were in the top 10 for worst wide receivers at creating separation. Jonathan Mingo, when he was the first route read, he was only open 25% of the time. So it can't get any worse than what it was last year.
Anybody else?
Yeah, so to kind of tie in what you guys were talking about, right, with the run game and the pass game and the expectations of can they hit minimum yardage and all that kind of stuff. At some point, and I'm not trying to be like, pissy about it, but at some point, somebody's going to have to do something really good for the Carolina Panthers. And what I mean by that is like Xavier Legette, he's a first-round pick that you moved up to get him. Bryce Young, you moved up to get him first overall, right? So while I do understand the tempering expectations and like, hey, look, crawl before you walk and all that kind of stuff, and I get it and I agree with it, but I also think that there's got to be a little bit of somebody's got to do something. It's like that internet meme where the guy's like just got the stick and he's poking that body that's not moving. He's like, do something, man. Like, I want to see somebody pop off the screen. I want to see somebody come out and do something dramatic and sustain success. And I think that this wide receiver room has the ability to do that. At least a couple players do. I think Deontay Johnson is in a very good situation for his game and for a bounce back personally for him to just say, hey, look, man, all that nastiness you heard in Pittsburgh about me being a cancer in the locker room and all those kinds of things, that I'm a better 2, not a 1. I'm here to prove to you I could be all those things. Like and he's got to bet on himself. He's in a 1-year essential like show me year to earn a big contract. And if he goes into 2025 as a free agent, along with T. Higgins, you're talking about a couple of the biggest bag grabbers that there's going to be out there, right? So let him go and earn that. But then Xavier Legette, man, you got a lot of people that don't think you could do it against real talent. They think that just because you were an older prospect and you played at South Carolina against some, and when you played against Clemson, you didn't have your best game. You can't win against real cornerbacks. Look, you just got a lot of bulletin board here, man. And you got a lot of talent in these guys. Deontay Johnson's a talented football player. Xavier Legette is a size speed just monster, man. Like you talk about why he got compared to DK Metcalf, it's because people hadn't seen what he was bringing to the table coming into that draft. Like he was a 101 at what he did. And that is kind of how Xavier Legette is, right? Like he's not the exact same thing as DK Metcalf, but good luck trying to defend this guy, man. If you get him in open space and you let him get up to his top speed, he's out. So for Bryce Young, yeah, this wide receiver room has real potential. I think the question becomes depth. I think that it's Jonathan Mingo, Terrace Marshall Jr., ISM, and then possibly the undrafted free agent kid, Jalen Coker, who wins out for those wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, depending on how many they carry. Who wins out for that? And that kind of becomes what shapes that room overall, assuming everybody stays healthy.
I'm not really high. I'm erring on the side of caution, but I'm high on Deontay Johnson. Kind of like for the reasons that Ricky said. Deontay Johnson has what we've seen, or what I've seen at practice and stuff, is a level of focus and determination. And there's a chip on his shoulder based on the reports that came out, which even if you ask him, I can see him seething internally, just mad about it. I think that he genuinely wants Bryce to be successful with him. He takes pride in his craft as a route runner. So I think I'm high on him. I think that he is really, it's kind of like, and I'm not comparing, but Steve Smith was a guy who always had a chip on his shoulder because nobody believed in him, right? Or he always carried that belief that nobody believed in him. And then he developed a rapport with Jake Delhomme, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna throw it up, and Steve is somewhere there. He's gonna get it. I can see potentially, listen, guys, potentially that Bryce and Johnson have that type of rapport where Bryce has full trust in him as a receiver, which he didn't have last year outside of Adam Thielen. And if Adam Thielen is your wide receiver 1, then you have a problem. And that's no knock on Adam Thielen. He's just not the guy that you want to be your wide receiver 1. So I'm high. Deontay is one of the guys that I'm pretty high on as far as expectations going into this season. And of course, Xavier Legette, and y'all been trashing Mingo. I don't know. I see what they say on Twitter. Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about Mingo. Are you ready to sell on him? But this depth at wide receiver will be very interesting. And Terrace Marshall has been asking for a trade for the last couple of years. So, it'll be interesting to see depth wise what you're talking about. But I'm very high on Deontay Johnson.
Is it over for Terrace? Is it over?
I don't think it's over for Terrace. I just feel like Terrace feels like he's more than what he has been. And that's why he's been asking for a trade. But the thing is, when you get an opportunity to catch the ball, you got to do something. It's not like, oh, I'm better than this. And also he sees his peers from LSU all thriving. That's a tough position when you can I think that Terrace Marshall has the potential to hoop. He just hasn't been hooping. And then when you pass the ball, you fumbling the ball. You can't do that. Like you have to make, even if you have limited opportunities, you have to make the most of those opportunities. He hasn't been able to do that.
Yeah.
Is he gonna and he's gonna have to figure out too when you talk about depth, can he provide anything in special teams? Because you can't just be a one-trick pony at the bottom of a depth chart where you don't even do that one trick all that well, right? Like that's what you're talking about. He had 19 receptions on 30 targets last year, and that was in a season where our wide receiver room was just like crying for help, right? Like we literally brought guys in off the street to come in and play, and he couldn't earn that time. He, from every account that Vashti, you and other reporters had given us about the way he handled himself, it was the utmost professional, and like he's tried to stay positive about it. Like, and that's awesome. I appreciate that about him. But if it's not going to work out here, then maybe they do look at somebody like Jalen Coker, who gets good reviews, and they see them working with him in special teams and OTAs and in rookie mini camps. Maybe they're trying to see, can we have a guy that can play a little bit different aspects of the game here for us, as opposed to just taking up that roster spot there at wide receiver 6.
And let me just say something real quick with like Mingo. I think Mingo could be that security blanket for Bryce Young in those tough situations. And I'm not out on Mingo yet, right? It was just one season. When it comes to Terrace Marshall, though, I do want to allude to, I think that one thing for Marshall is he's got to stay healthy. And then we'll see that if he can be consistent. And if he can put all that together, he's definitely got the talent to be making a serious impact.
I think the thing for me with the wide receiver core is just trust. With Bryce has to trust them. We harp on separation, but I think, and I don't know what's happened and I think fantasy football plays a factor with being on Twitter, but like I feel like separation has become like, I don't know, like it's key, but I feel like it's been over. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It is very important to separate and get open. Yes, but I feel like the weight that's been placed on it is a little too much because some receivers win different ways. DJ Moore wasn't the biggest separator, but when it comes to being competitive at the catch point and with the ball in his hands, there's not too many in the league that are better than him. And I think that's going to be a similar type of game of Xavier Legette. He may not be able to separate, but even with the guy that has like, I guess, smaller hands for his size, nobody is as competitive at the catch point as Xavier Legette. There's those opportunities where he's like, nobody's open. Oh, Legette is down there in the cut one-on-one. Let me just throw it up to him because I know that this guy can elevate. We've seen every viral clip from our Panthers.com or whatever Twitter handle of him going up and elevating, catching passes. This is what this guy does. He did it in South Carolina. He's that type of guy. And so I think Bryce is going to have that level of trust where like, he's not open, but let me give him a chance because it's either going to be PI or my guy's going to come up with it. And that's just the way the nature of the NFL is. So I think there's a level of adjustment that has to happen. We didn't have too many guys like that last year. Chark did his thing at times at the catch point, but he wasn't a elevation type of guy. He could finish with the back shoulder and stuff like that. But in terms of just going up over guys, we didn't really have those type of guys last year. We haven't really seen Bryce with those type of guys in his career because even at Alabama, he didn't really have that. So I think it's going to take a little bit of a mentality change for Bryce to just trust whether it's Deontay or a guy like Legette to give him a chance down the field or at the catch point that he's going to have to kind of build and get comfortable with.
Yes, sir.
Great points.
All right, so hey, let's continue to transition. All right.
All right, y'all. So tight ends, projected starter, Tommy Tremble, depth, Ian Thomas, Jatavian Sanders, Steven Sullivan, Jordan Matthews. Can this be a sneaky top 15 unit this upcoming season?
Hey, look, man, I really like this tight end core, especially between us getting JT Sanders and Tommy Tremble. Tommy Tremble is somebody I feel like is slept on and not talked about enough in Carolina, man. I feel like he's about to take that next step to be like that, maybe 400, 500-yard tight end. And then, of course, you got JT Sanders. JT Sanders got a crazy catch radius, and then you know what I'm saying, he got that yards after catch ability too. So you pair those guys in like two tight end sets, you know what I'm saying? Something that I've seen Canales do in the playoffs against like Detroit and Philadelphia. You know, so you put them in some two tight end sets, you can probably get creative with that, man. So I'm liking this tight end room. Of course, we got Ian Thomas, Sullivan as well, man. Both good tight ends. Well, one out of the two. One out of the two, I'll say, man. One of them is serviceable. Not going to say no names, man. But overall, man, I like the tight end room. I think you can be creative with it.
Hey, Tony, what do you say? What do you call? What's the thing that you say about Ian Thomas? He's a what?
Oh, his family works for the NSA. Yeah, yeah. That's the only thing that makes sense to really having this guy still on the team. You know, I've heard over the years. Matter of fact, when Ian Thomas was coming out of Indiana, one of the things that he was quote unquote known for, they said that he was a great blocking tight end and can eventually evolve into a good pass catcher tight end. Same thing they said about Tommy Tremble coming out of Notre Dame.
Yep.
He was a dog as a blocker, whether he was lined up online or in the H-back position. Tommy Tremble was a flat out dog, and we know he didn't really get his catches or his opportunity because they had Michael Mayers, right? So year after year, when I look at Tommy Tremble and I go back and I look at highlights, or we go back and we look at the all 22 tape, I'm always seeing Tommy Tremble out of position. It's hard for me to understand how are you out of position as a tight end in a run blocking scheme? Like, I've seen this guy give up crazy leverage to the defensive end, whether defensive end is lined up in the wide 9 or if he's in the 7 technique. It doesn't even matter. Like, he's getting beat across the board, and 9 times out of 10, you always seeing him on his back. So this dominance as a run blocker that some of these coaches have come in and say they have seen, I don't see that. I don't see that. I honestly feel like Tommy Tremble is a way much better blocker than Ian Thomas. And eventually, even at this point right now, I think he's a better pass catcher than Ian Thomas. So when you have that, and then you add a Jatavion Sanders, and we know what he can do as a pass catcher, and hopefully he can evolve into a better blocker as well. So at that point, what is Ian Thomas? What is the reason for keeping Ian Thomas around? Because I'm looking at, okay, you got Tommy Tremble, Jatavion Sanders, Steven Sullivan is still there. Okay, so what? I just don't see. I don't understand. I just don't see the value of keeping Ian Thomas around. So I'm gonna let it go before I go down this rabbit hole.
He's a glue guy.
Nah, I had to ask you that. I had to ask you because you always make me laugh whenever you say, that man got inside information on somebody. But go ahead, Dunk.
No, I was just joking. I said he's a glue guy, but
I
ain't gonna say nothing mean about him because apparently I be hearing his family be watching these YouTube videos and they'll come.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Like us,
I've said enough on my own channel.
So Vashti, you said so. So how do you feel? Hold on, real quick. I see my mom in the chat. What's going on, Mama Dukes? How do you feel about whenever he says so? Do you have a issue with Ian Thomas? Not a personal issue, but do you think it's time for him to pack his bags and it's time to transition?
I was responding to a family watching YouTubes and having issues. Like, listen, I mean, it's an equal opportunity. Anybody can really get it. Your people are on a public platform. That criticism comes with the game. Like I get criticized as a reporter sometimes. If you're on the field, that comes with the territory. If your family is sensitive, you need to check them on that. That's just how I feel about that. As far as Ian Thomas is concerned, for whatever reason, he continues to find a spot on the roster, and I don't think that'll change this year.
Now, Clay, you just did a live the other day talking about tight ends, and I know you went in depth about that room. Do you think that it can possibly be a top 15 unit?
I mean, the potential is always there, right? I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, though. I mean, I think that this tight end room cracking the top 15 right now, it's a stretch. I think this tight end room is young. It's talented with upside, but they need to develop and be consistent. To Ian Thomas, though, for him, it just comes down to the fact that he's shown potential, and back in the day, he's just been inconsistent. He has all the physical tools to be a productive pass catcher, I think, but he has to improve and be consistent and show production.
That's the thing. It's the pass catching thing, and then not really being able to make plays after the catch. And listen, Jatavion Sanders has aspirations of being Greg Olsen. He's coming for that spot, and that's just what it is.
I think there was a good point made. Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say. So, with all that being said, do we need Ian Thomas? That's all I'm saying.
He's sticking around, bro. He's sticking around.
He definitely gonna stick around.
I think Ian Thomas would actually. I honestly think Ian Thomas would be a great fullback.
You did say that. You made that point on the live yesterday, Clay, and that's the first time I've heard that where somebody said move him from tight end and move him to fullback. What was the fullback or hybrid tight end that we had? We just had him last year. I can't think of his name.
Giovanni Ricci.
I love that type of profile or place for him because he can block.
Yeah, use him like a Kyle Juszczyk over in San Fran.
Yep, I like that.
I don't know that Ian is quick enough though to do what
He ain't got the
usage
bag,
does.
bro.
Like, and that's
Thank you.
right.
Thank you, Ricky.
Y'all
You
And
might be right on
Clay was
that.
trying,
But
Clay was trying to
that's
save his career, but
I
Ricky,
was
I'm
trying
glad
to
you
help him
pointed it
out,
out.
man.
Thank
I was
you.
trying to give him a little.
No, I
you know,
hear you,
extra
man.
cash
I
in
hear
his
you.
pocket.
But you know what? I think that Ian can actually have some value though. And one way that I would bring up for that, and I'm not a huge Ian Thomas like apologist either. Like I firmly believe what was talked about earlier that Tommy Tremble is a better pass blocker, run blocker, and pass catcher right now in his career at this point than Ian Thomas is at all three aspects of the game. But where I think Ian can maybe find a little bit of room, and there was a great study there, or a great breakdown that came out today about the new kickoff rules and about the blocking schemes and all these things that players can be using in that. And one of the variations that they were showing is a pull block essentially during that kickoff return. And I think that Ian Thomas can handle some of those responsibilities. I think that he can find some footing in that because the other people that you're talking about in that room, Stephen Sullivan, that's not a blocker, man. Like Stephen Sullivan is not. He's essentially a. Sorry, my kids get ready for bed, so he's trying to say goodnight. I forgot what I was at. Stephen Sullivan is not a blocker, right? Like that's just not what he does. He's essentially your, tall wide receiver, jump ball, go up and get it in the red zone type of archetype. Jordan Matthews literally was a wide receiver out of Vanderbilt, so I don't think that you're looking at him as a blocker. So really what you are saying, and we've already conceded the fact that Jatavian Sanders is not a terrific blocker right now in his career. Who knows if he ever has to even get to that point, to be completely honest. I wouldn't even put so much emphasis on trying to usher that part of his game into being a focal point. Let him do what he does, man. If he's that good at it, at being a pass catcher, let him refine the routes, man. Let him really figure out what works in the NFL to make that part of his game the calling card, because we don't have that. We don't even have anything close to that. I'm still going to be a little bit patient on Sanders personally because he's a fourth round pick. And I know that where you're selected doesn't mean anything, but rookie tight ends usually do not acclimate to the NFL immediately or quickly or within the first year or two. So a fourth round pick coming in and having these expectations, I would preach a little bit of caution with the fan base to not sit here and expect him to come in and light it up as the next Sam Laporta. That's not the kind of player that he is. He's not going to be able to be on the field for all those times. You did talk about Canales, though, and he used 12 personnel on, I believe it was 24% of the snaps last season. That's something way different than what we saw in Carolina, where we were over 90% of 11 personnel. That's what we trotted out on each snap. So I think that there is room, man, to see Tommy Tremble and Jatavian Sanders play complementary roles in this offense. Top 15, maybe a little bit lofty, but what the hell, man? Why not? Yeah, top 15. Let's go for it.
Like I said, I pushed some of these kind of sort of to the max just to see, and I already knew the mindset that you guys were going to basically put it in reality because, like I said, 2,000 rushing yards, that's very hard to do. Top 15, like you said, you got a rookie. Tommy Tremble has not been the lead role of a tight end one. So, again, it was kind of just to get the drift and basically the reality of what's fantasy and what's actually on paper. So, I actually like that. I like that, Ricky. All right, CJ.
All right, we got the offensive line. Projected starters: Ike Mikwanu, Damian Lewis, Austin Corbett, Robert Hunt, Taylor Moton. You got depth with Yash Nyman, Ricky Lee, Ladara Traore, Chandler Zavala, Cade Mays, Nash Jensen, J.D. Lorenzo, Brady Christensen, Andrew Ram, Jeremiah Crawford, Christian Duffy. Okay. Did Dan Morgan really need to go out and spend $150 million on two guards this offseason?
And I'm a pat one person that loves the trenches. I don't know why he ain't applied for the job yet. And as much as he loves the trenches on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, I'm gonna ask the co-host over at Two Fans That Stands First, Tony, because he loves talking about the trenches. He says you build from the front and then you go from the back. Tony, do you really think that we should have spent $150 million or projected around that amount for two guards going into this offense?
Shit, his mic is on. Just testing 1 2 1 2. Yes, it was very much needed. Nah, but no, y'all know how I feel. If y'all have ever listened to any of our podcasts, whether it was this year or last year, I've always stated that you always build from the inside out. You always start from the trenches, right? And the trenches kind of dictate which way you're going to go offensively and defensively as a whole. And when we saw last year the turnstile at the two guard positions, so immediately in my mind, what it did was it caused a lot of inconsistencies throughout the whole line. So you had Taylor Moton trying to um compensate for what was happening at the right guard. You had Icky trying to maybe compensate what was going on at the left guard position. You had Bradley Bozeman being uncomfortable and trying to compensate for the guys on either side of him. It was a turnstile at the guard position. So just like we mentioned on our show the other night, we was talking about whether Icky or Austin would have a bounce back season, right? So one of the main things that has been a talking point in Panther Nation ever since we got Bryce, and people want to talk about Bryce's height, talk about his size. We talk about his footwork, we talk about him not being able to step up into the pocket, all these type of things. But hardly do you ever hear people say, "Well, the offensive line play from last year kind of dictated all of that." It's hard to have proper footwork when you're being sacked 62 times and getting hit another 20, 25 times on a consistent basis. I don't know how much you expect a person to be comfortable with their footwork when they feel like they're running from their life damn near every play. Then we talk about being able to step up into the pocket. What we seen last year where the offensive line was getting pushed back 2 or 3 yards. So then I asked on the flip side of that, well, what room did he have to step up into the pocket when the pocket was in his lap on a consistent basis? So, with everything else that we say about Bryce not having time to throw to the wide receivers, holding on the ball too long, this and that, I'll say this, and I'll say it again over and over again. If you don't have good offensive line play, it doesn't matter who you have on outside. It doesn't matter who you have running the ball. If your quarterback cannot conduct the offense of game plan that you have installed for him, because he touches the ball every single play. So if that offensive line is not giving him the opportunity to maximize his potential, you're going to see exactly what we saw last year, because it starts up front. Tom Brady was a prime example of that when he left New England. His last year in New England, the offensive line was horrible. Tom Brady had one of his worst seasons as a quarterback in the Patriots uniform. He left New England, came to Tampa Bay. First thing Tampa Bay did, they reinforced the interior of the offensive line. It's the blueprint is there. The blueprint is there. So back to your original question, do I feel like they need to spend that kind of money? Yes, because we were that horrible. We didn't need to do any piecemeal work, grabbing somebody off the couch or taking a second or third tier type player and plugging him in a position of need when you want to maximize the protection for your franchise quarterback going forward.
Now, Dunk, can you jump in there because you just did a video, if I'm not mistaken, was it last week on offensive line? I might got my weeks wrong. Was it last week when you did that live on that? And you really went into a dive on our offensive line. So do you think
last week, shameless plug, film breakdown on both our new guards. So go ahead and check that out. You know what I'm saying?
sir.
Don't skip the ads, it pays my bills. But for just playing, but for real. And if you put Wade in PFF, I know it's a hot button topic, but Robert Hunt, number 10 guard on their list, Damian Lewis, number 29, I think. So they have to pay. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get that level of guard play, you have to pay to play. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was what was necessary and tells you where their priorities was. Because I think I was talking last week. I was like, when have the Panthers spent, and granted, it's not guaranteed, but when have the Panthers spent over $100 million on the open market on anybody? Like, the first move they made was $100 million contract on a player. And that was just like so out of left field for me. And that let me know exactly where their priority was. And obviously, you talk about having a shorter quarterback and needing that interior to be strong. But I also think there's a level of, I guess, the thing they can do as far as the system that's going to help just kind of I guess, protect the offensive line as well. We hear about the 2.7 seconds or less. We hear about them running the ball, and obviously off of running the ball, you get play action. You can boot off that to move the pocket, and your offensive line isn't just sitting just straight drops, because these pass rushers in the NFL, man, we saw the bag that they're getting paid. We saw Brian Burns get his $30 million average contract, and for better or worse, how people feel about him, that's just the going rate, because these guys are excellent. And so it puts a lot of pressure on the offensive line. So yes, you had to spend that money, but there's also going to be things that you do to mitigate some of the, I guess, the stress that they're going to be under when they're straight drops, especially with a shorter quarterback. But yeah, you had to do that. You had to beef up the inside, so these guys that can, I guess, anchor down. That way Bryce can step up. Yeah, Icky may let a guy go outside of him, but of course, if the interior is steady, he can step up. We know Bryce is a little slippery. He's not the biggest, but he can duck and dodge and pick and choose where he wants to go and navigate the pocket as needed in that standpoint. So I feel like from a philosophical standpoint of what they want to do, what they're trying to do, it was necessary for them to make that happen. And regardless, this year is about finding out who Bryce Young is. You have to throw out last year completely because stuff was just so bad. Clay talked about how bad it was, but like, we have to get to the point where stuff is at least average on offense so we can make evaluations. And I said it before, of who we are, because we just really don't know who we are because things were just so bad. So we have to get the talent level to at least a respectable level to be able to see what we have in Bryce Young, in a Jonathan Mingo, in a Xavier Legette, or some of these other pieces that we have question marks about, because things were just so bad last year. It's hard to get a full judgment on anybody. So I think they had to do it, and it started with the offensive line, and that's exactly what they did. They started with the offensive line.
Yeah. So going into the rookie aspect, I know I don't have our undrafted rookies on here, but rookie showcase, how much impact is expected of our rookies going into their first year? Will we finally get a glimpse of Jonathan Brooks? And can Xavier Legette display that he will be a problem for opposing defenses this upcoming year? I want to ask Vashti this question. When you were out on the field, how much activeness did you see out of Jonathan Brooks? I did hear where he was saying, he was in tune, listening to play calling, but actually, what did you see from him on the side whenever you were able to have that access to him on the side watching practice?
He was like any other person who's who's not participating in practice. He says he's doing mental reps. I don't know what that looks like.
Thank you.
So, but he's on the sideline, he's engaged, but it's not like he was, just wandering. He's engaged in practice. He was watching what was going on. So, yeah, he was as active as a participant as you can be when you're physically unable to perform in the actual drills and that portion of practice. And I don't think he'll be ready for training camp, honestly.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. I don't expect him to trot out there first day of training camp or participate in any practice. Maybe not even that first week. Who knows? And this is just these are the indicators I've been given based on, they're not going to rush him back. Did y'all see how many running backs they had in that room? So, I wouldn't even be surprised if he started out the season on the PUP list. And this is just me speculating. And that wouldn't even be a problem with me because they have the depth at that running back position. I don't think there's any reason to really push him coming off of that ACL injury. And even though it was a clean, I guess they said it was a clean break, the best one that you could have. I don't expect him to be in the rushing back.
So how does everybody feel about, I know I've seen Dunk, I know we talked about it on Two Fans, I know Clay talked about it. Ricky, I don't know if I've heard your take on it. Well, no, I have, because you posted on Twitter. Is anybody on this panel worried about Etzel's hamstring? Or growing hamstring? Anybody worried about it?
Who's?
No.
Etzel.
Leggett.
Xavier Leggett.
Oh no! Have y'all seen his practice videos?
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you.
watching the same stuff I'm
Thank
watching.
you. Thank you. Okay. I just had to throw that out there because some people are still saying, he didn't practice. We probably drafted an injury-prone wide receiver. Da 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 da. No, I
Who
think
said that?
There's just a lot of speculation because
Really? I
they
haven't seen that.
think a
it's
lot
a
of
lot.
people that have that many muscles that they're tight and like you pull stuff and then they want to throw them into the JC Horn bucket, another Gamecock
you.
that can't stay healthy.
Thank you. Bash out. It's a lot. You got a lot of Panther content creators out there that's bashing like we didn't learn our lesson, or Dan Morgan is bringing in injury prone guys and this and that. Like, yeah. I'm just laughing at your face because Vash, I'm like, oh, I didn't think that. But no, I honestly think I'm ready to see the matchup with JC Horn with South Carolina. I'm a Tar Heel, so I'm gonna just say it. I want to see a Gamecock go against a Gamecock. I'm ready to see that matchup with JC Horn going against Xavier Leggett. I'm praying that we do get it, and it's more on JC side because Xavier has not been in the league yet. But I mean, I'm really looking forward to some of these battles with wide receivers going against corners going into training camp.
Corner that is still. I don't know. Corner. I know that's tomorrow, but that depth in that corner room, we're looking real nasty right now.
Thank you. Good Lord.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say is anybody up here looking forward to our undrafted free agent center, Andrew Ram, seeing what he can do? I'm sorry, Doug. I had to bring it up.
No, it's funny because I already know Tony. I'm gonna look at Tony's face the whole look. That's what I said. I'm gonna look at his face the whole time because I know he can't stand it. I know he can't stand it.
I'm on mute.
So go ahead. Anybody, how does everybody feel about the center position?
I'm actually bullish on Corbett, to be honest. I'm maybe in the minority. If he's healthy, I think he's fine. I think he's smart. I think when he was healthy, granted the bar was kind of low, he was far and beyond the best offensive lineman the Panthers had. He was the most consistent. He may not be the big bruiser like everybody else, but I think winning with leverage consistently, I think nobody was better on the offensive line than him when healthy. So health is a concern. I'm not going to argue with you there, but I just think as far as ability, I'm not really concerned about him at the center position, to be honest.
Yeah, I brought that up because he's had 2 injuries on that same knee in a calendar year. And for me, it's like the best we could do was an undrafted center out of Oklahoma. I thought they would have done something a little more than that, but we'll see.
Yeah, that was the main thing for me. And again, I've been harping on this ever since beginning of the draft, that the 2 position needs that Carolina should have focused on with pick 33 and 39 was cornerback and center. We was in a prime position through round 2, 3, and 4 to get one of the top centers in the draft, where you talk about either Zach Frazier, JPJ, Van Pran out of Georgia, Taylor Bartolini out of Arkansas. No, I mean out of Wisconsin, or Bo Rimmer out of Arkansas. These were guys that had 3 to 4 years starting time under, on their resume as far as being starting centers. And it wasn't so much that I felt like Austin Corbett can't play center. It's the fact that, one, he hasn't played center. We did, like I said, we did a whole thing on Austin Corbett the other day on our live. Austin Corbett has only played 203 snaps at center, and it was in the preseason in 2019. He has no snaps in the regular season in the pros or in college. Actually, in college, he played left tackle. He didn't even play guard in college. Okay, so yes, having the size, being able to play with leverage and things like that, that's good. And I think that's what helped him out. Even when he was in LA, he worked better in the run game than he did in pass protection. But when you're talking about like CJ just mentioned, and we have harped on, when you coming back from a torn ACL and then a strained MCL, and we all know he looked the shell of himself when he came back last year, when he missed those 4 games, when he came back those 4 games, and then they shut him down for the rest of the season. So what I'm saying is, if you look at our current depth chart right now, the starting center, the projected starting center, and the backup has no experience at center. So again, if you want to solidify the interior of the offensive line, and you're talking about providing protection for Bryce Young and giving him the resources to be able to do the things that we all want to see him do in the pocket, my only question was how secure or how confident people feel in the center position. Yes, those guys cross train a lot from guard position to the center position. If it wasn't for those knee injuries, I wouldn't even be thinking about it. Okay. But the fact is that he is coming off those 2 injuries, and we don't have no type of proven center behind him in case. Knock on wood, God, hope it never happens. But if something were to happen, what proven center do we have behind Austin Corbett that we would feel confident about? That's my thing.
Yeah, I had those concerns about center, but actually after watching OTAs and minicamp, they were eased a bit, and I'm kind of like on Dunk. I don't know if I'm bullish on him being there, but it didn't seem to be as big of an issue as I thought it would be. And I guess we'll have to see, in the future. But yeah,
I'm shocked we've been talking O-line for 15 minutes. Ain't nobody mentioned number 79.
Well, I was just about to say.
Hey, don't even look, man. Don't even get me started.
No, hold on.
There you go.
Don't get me started on 79, man.
You up there playing that game. You keep playing the game multitasking. But since you want to say that, that goes into the next slide with hot seat. We got a couple of players that I think Panther Nation are sick of, trying to pat their bags, or don't even want them on the team. This is just a few. Sure. Yeah, I say 2 for me. Miles Sanders, Terrence Marshall, Ian Thomas, and Cade Mays. I know people really dug Cade Mays. I'll just say, with the depth pieces that they brought in, he's going to have to compete with somebody to still be on this team or be brought back on the practice squad. But for me, it's more of Miles Sanders. You're probably not going to get, released quite yet because we don't know how healthy Jonathan Brooks is. But I think Terrence Marshall definitely has a lot of competition in that room. Ian Thomas, we've already talked about the tight end room, how we feel about it. And Cade Mays, again, it just depends on what you're going to do with the depth. So, is there someone that you guys think is on the hot seat that we didn't, speak of on that particular slide? Or is there another person on the offensive side?
I don't think Miles Sanders is on anybody's hot seat. He's not going anywhere, y'all. They just dropped a bag on him.
So Vashon, what I mean by that is with the fan base, not hot seat. Yeah, okay.
I thought he was on fringe.
Look, like I say all the time, man. Look, Ike Ekwonu, he got some work to do, man. Let's be honest. He gave up 11 sacks last year. Even looking at his tape, his footwork was crazy. It was so easy for guys to brush off the line and get right past him. This is a big concern of mine, man, like him being on the left side. But, Dunk was right earlier. Canales bringing in the philosophy of, getting the ball out quick. That's going to help our offensive line. But at the end of the day, you're going to have some plays where you're going to have to drop back and, allow these routes to develop here and there, like third and long or whatever. And Ike Ekwonu, he scares me. I'm just being honest, man. Like being on that left side, that blind side of Bryce, that could get him hurt, man. For example, going against the Raiders soon, we got Max Crosby. If I'm the Raiders coach, man, I'm putting Crosby on Ike's side every time. So, I don't know. Ike got to step up, man. He got to step up this year because last year was just pitiful.
I think Ike played better than expectations his rookie season that set him up for failure his sophomore year. Offensive linemen usually, and this is just what I've heard from coaches and fellow offensive linemen, they don't really hit their stride until year 3, probably year 4, is when you can really see what you're going to get out of a guy. At NC State, Ike was not known for pass protection. That's just not what he was known for. Ike was known as a run blocker, and he'll get out there in space and he will knock people down. He had at NC State used to collect pancake syrups, and he had all of these pancake syrups because that's what he did as a run blocker. And so they didn't play into that strength. I think there were a bunch of issues with that Frank Wright system. We saw how he looked well under Steve Wilkes, and what did Steve Wilkes prioritize? Running the ball. So I think we'll see an improved Icky this season. I think your offense, as the offense, will be tailored around guys' strengths and not just kind of forcing something that isn't something that they do naturally. So we'll see. Icky deserves all the slander, but I think that he'll have a bounce back year this year if Canales continues or does what he says that he's going to do and stays committed to the run.
Well, he's going to have a coach. He's going to have a coach that's going to coach him up this year. He didn't really have that going into year 2.
Well, camping was like y'all were all on. You see how fickle y'all are. Everybody was on camping. Everybody loved camping after that. Prior to last year. Now,
right.
He didn't have a coach. Yeah, come on now.
We found out he was snitching. Once we found out he was snitching, he lost.
Yeah.
But nah, Vash, I was gonna ask you because you've kind of kept up with Icky before he was even a Panther, just at the college level. What did you really think of like those comments he made about him kind of thinking a little bit too big of himself after that rookie year and kind of not necessarily he said not using all the resources or not really putting in the work that he should have to get better. Like you kind of, like I said, you've kind of been around him a little bit more before he kind of made it to this level. So how did you kind of take them comments as far as what he made saying that? Because to me, I was like, it was disappointing, I guess, for me to say, but I wanted to get your thoughts.
The league will humble you, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And so I think that Icky was the man at NC State. I mean, and when you get drafted that high, you obviously were very good at what you did. And he didn't really, he came in that rookie season and he was good. And then all of these expectations were placed on him. And I think that, he didn't have a rookie moment his rookie year. And a lot of guys will, I think that first game, but it was the first game. I think that his first rookie season, he was going up against monsters those first few weeks. And he actually, outside of that first game, he actually did pretty decently. And then that kind of carried on. But he had his rookie humbling moment all last year. And sometimes you need that. It's not necessarily about having the moment, it's how you respond. And, I think, I'm not surprised that he kind of got full of himself after that rookie season because he was hearing it from coaches. Everybody was big up in him. Oh, our offensive line is solid because they played solidly. All you got to do is drop in a quarterback. So, with those old linemen, it's such a important but nuanced position. I think that he learned. Because sometimes, when you're just naturally good, you might not practice as much. Yeah. And I think that's what it was. I think he was always so naturally good, he just didn't have to practice as much. Now he was like, okay, now I got to practice because this is a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So with
I just want to say real quick, Doug, before you move on. I just felt like Vashti watched our thumbnail when she said bounce back season. Made me feel good because Iggy was on my thumbnail with bounce back season. So I'm feeling high on myself right now. I just want to say that. Okay,
No, you good. So look, we're gonna end it right here with the training camp battles. As we discussed, offensive line, wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. From Clay, how do we have the setup? Like Clay, Ricky, Don't, and then Vashti to let us know which particular group are you most focused on in training camp with the training camp battle, and give me 2 players that are going to battle it out. It can be 1 or 2.
We're going in me first.
Yeah, you first. You first, Clay.
All right. Probably for me, honestly, the one I'm looking forward to the most is the wide receiver room.
Okay.
Just because of the fact that you got Jonathan Mingo coming into his second year, Terrace Marshall really hasn't found himself. I really feel like yet. I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but you're going into what, your third, fourth season now. You got Amir Smith-Marset. The thing is he's very versatile, so he kind of brings a different skill set to the table. You kind of can, maneuver him around. David Moore's got that familiarity with the wide zone scheme and Dave Canales' offense. So, and then you got guys like Mike Strachan, Cam Sims, but then you got the undrafted free agents, Jalen Coker, Sam Pinkney out of Coastal. I'm really hoping that Jalen Coker actually shows his potential of what we saw at Holy Cross in his game film, can translate into the NFL. Of course, me being a Coastal alma mater, I hope that Sam Pinkney somehow can make it. But the biggest group out of that wide receiver group is the one that I really want to see.
All right, go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, so just on the offensive side of the ball, I would say the wide receiver is going to be the obvious answer here for probably just about everybody, I would assume. Just because there's so many questions still to be answered there. We know that Adam Thielen's going to be on that 53. We know that Xavier Legette will be on there, and we know that Deontay Johnson will be on there. I, honest to God, think that you could say any of the other players are literally fighting for their roster spot for the rest of that time. Like ISM, he has return value, so I think that he's got a clear path into there. TMJ, I just think that he's got a lot of things that he's got to prove, man, and he's got the talent, but there's just a lot of questions still with that. Jonathan Mingo, it's the second year, man. I mean, I know that Dave Canales and Dan Morgan didn't personally invest a second-round pick in this guy, but the regime that Dan Morgan was a part of invested a second-round pick in this guy. So I don't think that Dan would be wanting to give up on him this quickly. And I also think that he had some meaningful snaps last year, whether they were good, meaningful, or bad, meaningful. He got experience. He played. He has a lot of personal things that he can write down and work on now, right? Like individual things. And that's where we talk about the grace that Bryce Young gets as opposed to somebody like Jonathan Mingo. There's a lot of individual components that Mingo struggled with. I think that he could get better at those, and that makes him an immediate better player, especially from a wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 3 standpoint instead of wide receiver 1. The other spots, I mean, honestly, I guess it's running back for the same thing. I'm just looking at depth and return value and special teams. But I think that the offensive line is where you're going to see some of the more interesting battles because I think that everybody's fighting for the backup positions. Like, who should be starting on that offensive line. But Chandler Zavala is a guy that I could see not making this roster, and I think that might surprise fans because he was an NC State guy and he was a 4th-round pick, and there was a lot of hope for him. The dude was really bad last year. And Dunk, I know you brought up PFF grades and that they're, take it or leave it, man. It's pick your poison. PFF grades, he was the worst rated offensive guard in blocking, period. 360 ever. Like over 360 snaps. And he got a 7.1 pass blocking number. Like his overall was like a 25-6, I think. The 45 number that he had for pass blocking raised his number up to a respectable 25-6, worst ever since it's been created. So, like, and look, man, he overcame some serious injury scares, right? He's also had injury scares previously at NC State. So this is just a guy that I think is fighting an uphill battle, and that would be something that I would look at as my surprise cut candidate.
All right, go ahead, Dunk.
I ain't gonna get too deep in it, but shout out to Nakari in the chat. Pretty much stole my battle. It's that kicker, you know what I'm saying? Eddie, he showed up late to OTAs. Is it a contract situation? Is he helping his brother get a scholarship? They picked up the thicker kicker. So I'm trying to figure out what's gonna happen with that. You know what I'm saying? Because Eddie, look, we haven't had a lot of success over the past 5-6 years. We almost had a chance to go to the playoffs in the Steve Wilkes. So a lot of the fan base is really putting a lot of that blame on Eddie missing them kicks against the Falcons. A lot of things could be different. Steve Wilkes could be our head coach. We could have a whole different quarterback. There's a whole what-if multiverse timeline where Eddie makes them kicks. Steve Wilkes is our coach. Maybe we draft Anthony Richardson and we doing something different. We win that division that year, and the whole thing goes like jobs were lost, opportunities were changed, lives were changed because of that. And so kudos to them for bringing in competition, at least, you know what I'm saying, to make him compete for us. So I'm going to be paying attention to that very, very closely for camp.
All
See,
right.
I didn't know we could choose special teams. You cheated, man. I totally would have chose that.
Dunk went left field, but hey, I saw it in the chat, and I was like, special teams is kind of sort of offense, and then punting is defense. So I was
Okay.
like, oh,
They score points.
yeah,
I
that's
hear
what I
you.
said. They score points. All right, Miss Vashot, what you got for us?
Based on the screen, I will go wide receivers, just because I think there's a lot of gray area there. With those guys, there aren't really. What Ricky said, Jonathan Mingo really, I don't think they give up on him after 1 year, especially, given where he was drafted. That stuff matters. But outside of that, I think Smith Marset, I mean, he's got value in special teams. I think it's pretty open outside of that. I think the running backs are pretty set. But I just saw that kicker in Cleveland sign that deal.
Yep.
And I don't think what's the face shows up to camp first day. I wouldn't be surprised.
Eddie P.
Ooh.
Eddie P. I don't know. That's what he was holding out for. He was holding out for money.
Contract.
He feels like he's undervalued as a kicker. A lot of people have not forgotten Atlanta. And Dunk, you bring up a good point. Like that game changes everything. I don't care what you did last year. Like the whole franchise could be in a completely different space if he doesn't miss those kicks in that moment. And he hasn't really been put in a pressure moment to make up for that since then, to prove to people that wasn't a fluke. So that kicker battle will be, I mean, that's what we were looking at during OTA. So we got to see if Eddie P shows up first. And then after that, we'll see how the battle commences. But that's your training camp battle. That's the real one.
The Cleveland kicker got like almost $6 million per year, if I remember right.
Yes.
I'm sorry, man. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not paying Eddie Pinheiro $6 million this season.
No, he's not gonna get that, but he feels. I think like
he feels slighted.
Yeah.
Well, did y'all see?
I mean, did you see here? I think he was like the 20. He was in the 20s as far as pay.
It's like raise or salary.
He wanted to be higher based on his production. Last year.
He was quick to bring up that I'm top 3 all time. He brought that stat up real fast, which I mean led me to believe that he's already got his little talking points for when he sits down in a meeting to try to bring on that contract extension.
Well, I saw that press conference that he had a while back that they were like, Justin Tucker makes like 6.6 million per year or whatever. And he's just like, oh, wow, didn't know that. Yeah. So it's like,
Justin
I mean,
Tucker
you're talking about the best kicker of all time.
He also makes 98% of his extra point kicks, and Eddie Pinheiro hits about 90%, man. Look, if you don't got a big boot and you can't kick them from 55 plus, you better be damn near automatic kicking them extra points. And 90%, that ain't that, man.
Yes, sir. But that is all. I can't thank Clay, Ricky, Dunk, Miss Vashti enough for making this night special. We did this so you guys can see faces. We're all going to be at training camp. Majority of us. I know we're not going to be all at the same time, but if you see us, definitely pull up to us. Definitely ask us. I met Dunk and Vashti the same weekend last year at Back to Football. That's where you develop relationships. I can't wait to meet Ricky. Can't wait to meet Clay. As much as you guys think I met CJ and Tony, I've never met them face to face. And finally, I'll be able to do that this year. So, again, I thank every single one of you for making this night special. Go ahead and shout out your media platform, your YouTube, and then I am going to hand it over to CJ. So, Clay, go ahead and shout out the Rockstar Report, and then we're going to go down the line. Go ahead.
Dougie, thank you. And Quan, thank you for putting this together and bringing us all together tonight for this lovely panel. It was an awesome show. But yeah, you can find me at the Rockstar Report on YouTube, on Twitter. I'm Robstar 92 _. And that's on TikTok as well. Very active on all of those. So you can find me there. Holler at your boy, but don't scream at me.
All right, go ahead, Ricky.
I host my podcast. It's called The Bo Body Show. You can see my handle right above me. It's at Ricky Bo Body. I also am a contributor over at Cat Crave, so I'll have a couple articles a week once the season kicks off a little bit more there. I appreciate you having me on, man. Thanks for having me on with the esteemed guests too, man. It makes me feel like I'm a special person.
You family now. Like, this is not your first time. Clay, you family. Vashot, you're family now. Like, once you come to the channel, you're more than welcome anytime to pull it back up. Go ahead, Dunk.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me on the panel. Like you mentioned, a lot of y'all, we kind of put faces to names for the first time at training camp last year. So just good to kind of reconnect, of course. And training camp is fun for me as a content creator. So I love being out there in the mix and stuff, as hot as it is. And it is hot, but I appreciate you having me on. Twitter, I'm at Dunk on the Man. You may get some WNBA sports betting stuff there too. So beware. You might not like my takes on that so much as you do as my Panther stuff. But if you want to get my Panther stuff on YouTube, youtube.com/@UB Sports Talk. That's UB Sports Talk. So holla at your boy.
All right, Miss Vashti.
Yeah, Carolina Blitz, carolinablitz.com, at Keep Blitzing on Twitter, and Carolina Blitz on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all that.
All right. So if you thought night one was it, it's definitely not. And Vashti, I laughed. I was trying to hold my smile when she was like, I want to talk about corners, but that's tomorrow night. But yes, we're not done yet. This is just night one of a 2-night special. On Wednesday, you head over to Two Fans in the Stands, and CJ and Tony will be the host for the defense side of the ball. I'm going to go ahead and let CJ, go ahead and tell you guys what's going on night two. So the floor is yours, CJ.
Yeah, and again, Doug, we appreciate you having us over here. And y'all, if you like night one, please come over to Two Fans in the Stands Wednesday at 8 p.m. for night two, where we'll talk about the defense. We'll also have some special guests that night as well. We're going to have Curtis and Bryson from Panthers on Tap, Ben from the Keep Purring podcast, Twan Don from the 704 Charlotte Bound Show, and Panthers beat writer Sheena Quick is going to join us as well. It should be a great show. Please come over, check us out, support us, and we thank you.
I got a good group.
Yeah,
Look
like
at
I
y'all,
said,
man.
yeah,
Y'all got to start like a temp agency or something. Y'all are able to fill these positions with some serious
Ricky.
talent, man.
Ricky, you talk about people feeling, making people feeling good. I'm over here like, yeah, I'm feeling good too.
Look, I'm gonna say this, and I know Tony probably not like this. Tony and I came up with this plan before I went off to my military training. I said, "Hey, Tony, let's do a training camp special." It took us Tony, maybe about an hour. All these names, we spit these out just like this. We knew exactly who we wanted, and we knew most of you guys collab great with each other. And again, this is my first time having Vashti on. The first time I had Clay on. I know when we did the mock draft, Clay was like, Doug said he was going to come on. I already knew exactly what it was. And again, this is the first time. This is not your guys' last time coming over here. I can't wait to come back home, see you guys at training camp. We chop it up there, and then even have some more things in store for you guys in the fall. So again, I appreciate every single one of you guys joining us. Again, if you enjoyed night one, you got a break tomorrow. Head over to Two Fans in the Stands on Wednesday at 8 p.m. And you're going to have another Power Pat panel that's going to break down the defensive side. So as we always do over here at What's Up, Doug, we say definitely stay blessed. Definitely stay safe. Keep pounding. Peace.